Hey guys, and welcome to the ATPL theory. We're going to be talking about fuel definitions. Now this is something I initially struggled with a little bit, because when you're taught it in a classroom and you have no practical experience on the matter, it can kind of get away from you a little bit. So I've drawn it out here in the simplest way I can think of. I hope you all understand it by the end of this video. There are some legal requirements which we need to take for fuel, and these are as follows: start and taxi, trip, contingency, alternate, additional fuel, final reserve. Let's go through them and talk about each one. Start and taxi fuel. That is the fuel required to start the engines, running of the APU if you have one, and it's the fuel that you need from being at the gate or at your parking spot and getting you to your runway to the point at which you release the brakes ready for takeoff. At that point of brake release, you're expected to be below the regulatory takeoff weight. So the start and taxi fuel, pretty self-explanatory, I think. Next would be the trip fuel. Now the trip fuel is the fuel required to do the takeoff roll, the initial climb, the cruise, the descent, any approach procedures, and landing at your destination airport. Next will be contingency. It's normally considered as 5% of the trip fuel. So the contingency is any contingencies during our trip. So whether it be a storm that we need to avoid, if it's stormy weather, if there's a lot of CVs around, to consider the fact that we might have to go around some stormy weather. It also takes into consideration any holding at the destination aerodrome. For example, it may not be bad weather, but we may take some contingency fuel because it's a busy time in Madrid and we know we might have to hold, or a busy time in London, airspace, peak times, may have to hold for 10 minutes, these kind of things. That is what the contingency fuel is for. So it's part of the kind of trip essentially to our destination aerodrome. The next fuel is going to be alternate fuel, also called diversion, depending where you read it, diversion fuel. And that fuel takes into account a go around at our destination airport, the climb out, a cruise, a route of some sort, the descent and approach procedure to our alternate aerodrome. We don't always need alternate fuel. There are certain legal requirements where we would need an alternate aerodrome. Some days we don't. For example, if the destination aerodrome, if the weather is good and it has 2 runways, for example, we don't actually legally need to carry alternate fuel. Final reserve fuel is the fuel that should be in the tanks at touchdown at your destination or alternate. It's essentially 45 minutes for a piston engine, although I think that has actually come down to 30, so don't quote me on that. And it's definitely 30 minutes at a given height holding at your destination. It's normally 1500 feet altitude above the aerodrome, holding for 30 minutes for a jet engine. As commercial pilots, we always need to carry that 30 minutes final reserve fuel. Any additional fuel is just a term giving us as pilots a little bit of leeway, in that we may look at the flight plan and decide that we actually want a little extra fuel because it may be thunderstorms, we might be holding, and we might have to divert. So let's just add a little bit to keep us safe. And it's essentially just a commander's discretion to add a little bit of additional fuel. Now, I want to clear up a couple of confusing points that a lot of guys get confused, especially in the media also. There is a big difference between declaring minimum fuel and actually declaring a Mayday fuel. The minimum fuel call is used when you are committed to a destination, to an airport, and any change in your current clearance would cause you to land with less than the final reserve fuel. Now, at that point, if you are going to land with less than your final reserve, that, and only then, is when you declare a Mayday fuel. That would be Mayday, 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 whatever your call sign is, fuel. And that lets ATC know that you are now, under all circumstances, going to land at whatever aerodrome you've decided into your final reserve. And that is considered an emergency state because you're landing with less than that 30 minutes of final reserve fuel. So I hope that's cleared up the difference between minimum fuel and Mayday fuel. I hope you've enjoyed the explanation of all the fuel types that we take. All the best. Till next time.